Hey folks, welcome back to another very special edition of While We're on the Subject. We're broadcasting to you live, well, it's live right now. When you see it, it won't be, from beautiful Pepperdine University in Malibu, California, where I am proud to announce that I am parked next to a DeLorean. But another exciting news, my special guest, the Dean of the Public Policy School, Pete Peterson, a more alliterative name in academia you will not find. Pete is here administering the America Project, which he's going to tell us about today. Pete, thanks for letting me be here. I was going to thank you for coming to the show, but we're actually engineered this beautiful set on your campus due to your generosity. So tell us about the America Project.
Yeah, the America Project is a gathering of thinkers and leaders beginning here on the School of Public Policy campus to look at the future of the conservative movement. I think it's very fair to say that even with the election of President Trump back in November, that both during the campaign season and certainly since, there have been a lot of questions about what the future of the conservative movement here in the United States looks like. It's always been a coalition. It's always been a group of different philosophies and ideas about what the American regime and the American government, how it should be run. But certainly looking forward, we'd like to convene a conversation and to begin it here at Pepperdine and the School of Public Policy to, again, think about, in the context of this really historic election, what the conservative movement looks like looking out over the next 5 or 10 years.
So why Pepperdine, other than the strategic vantage point in that in Berkeley we weren't safe, and so we could actually, we had to drive an hour into the mountains of Malibu to actually feel safe from persecution.
Yes.
Why Pepperdine?
Well, the School of Public Policy actually has an interesting and unique background. This coming year will be our 20th anniversary as a graduate policy school. It's one of the few policy schools in the United States that I would argue comes from more of a conservative or certainly center-right perspective. It was founded by the late great political scientist James Q. Wilson, who believed that the future public leaders really should be trained in a variety of different skills and studies. So while most graduate policy programs tend to be more quantitative and purely technocratic, seeing the government as the solution to most of our public problems, Pepperdine here in the School of Public Policy has always looked at government as one of the parts of the puzzle, and that effective public leaders really need to be trained in all of the liberal arts, whether it's political philosophy or economic philosophy or sociology, as well as the more quantitative skills in free market economics and policy analysis. And so in that, understanding that conservative ideas have always had a great impact and influence on policy, understanding that this election is a historic moment in our the American political landscape, we wanted to take this moment here at the Policy School to convene this conversation about the conservative movement here in the United States and how it's going to impact public policy looking out over the next 5 or 10 years.
So is there still a conservative movement in the United States?
Yeah, I think there is, but I think there's a lot of dispute or questioning, in some cases arguments, about what the components of that movement should be. I think the historian George Nash has written quite a bit lately on the fact that really after the Cold War and the fall of the Berlin Wall, that was the beginning of the fracturing of the conservative movement that has always had components of international policy, mostly on the what's been described as the neocon side, certainly social conservatives and economic conservatives and libertarians. But with the fall of the Berlin Wall, there really began that pulling apart of the different components of that coalition. And with the election of Donald Trump, certainly you had those that were and remain in this never Trump camp, but also certainly going forward, there's a lot of questioning as to what that coalition of the American conservative movement is going to look like. And certainly this convening here, starting with this American project here at Pepperdine, is an attempt to begin that conversation, to look at what are going to be the main issues that are going to hold together what becomes a new coalition that comprises the conservative movement.
So if you had to say, if there's one takeaway you want to take from the American Project and make sure that transfers on to the next generation or to the conversation, what would you say that is? What do you wish was in the conversation more today?
Well, I think first off, and this is again is why we're doing this at a policy school, the understanding that that conservative philosophy and ways of looking at the role of citizens, governments, and civil society, much less a view of foreign policy and America's role in the world. That conservatives have really played a significant role, particularly over the last 70 years, in influencing the way that America governs itself and the way that we portray ourselves out in the world. So both in domestic policy and foreign policy, conservative philosophy has really had a significant influence. I think like no other time, though, in the last 70 years, that coalition of different parts of the American conservative movement are under serious strain. And so as we look out over the next 5 or 10 years, I'm not even in a place right now to say what those parts of the coalition are going to look like. What I do know is that the coalition is going to look, that comprises an American conservative movement, is going to look different, is going to have some different interests, but still based upon some bedrock conservative values and virtues. And how that looks, again, over the next decade, I think is going to be certainly different than the last decade.
Well, I hope it looks like this, because this is the future of conservatism. At least, I hope so. So, well, Dean Peterson, thank you so much for putting on this project, inviting us, and I hope the conference bears out a lot of fruits, and I hope that next year when we do it in the Tahitian Islands, or wherever we do it, that I will be back and invited again. So
I look forward to it.
Thanks for coming by.
Great to be with you.
Thanks for being on the show, folks. Talk to you soon.